Well, there, ladies and gentlemen, the sound that must be being repeated time and time again in fields up and down the island, across the island, all over, as we enjoy this remarkable spell of weather, which is entirely what we would ask for in this period of the year. Fields that have been ploughed now being worked down to a fine tilth to accommodate barley, wheat, oats, potatoes, all that grows on the farm, and tractors, I imagine, are out from dawn till dusk, making the most of this weather, because while it's very timely at harvest and we have to be right on the ball with the weather at harvest, few people realise, I think, outside of farming particularly, that it is absolutely crucial that crops go in at the appropriate time as well. Indeed, there was a man who farmed not far from St John's when I was a boy, who used to say that the optimum date for sowing corn, barley or oats, it would be mostly oats in those days, was Lady Day, which was the 25th of March. I think things haven't changed a great deal since that date. Perhaps varieties have made it so that we can sow them more, maybe a bit earlier now, but by and large it's not a bad date to aim for to have crops in. Now, I've had a man on this programme many times who's been involved particularly at the harvest end of the operation, but he's also very much involved and very busy at the spring end as well. And this week I'm talking to Ken Callister, and I asked Ken probably the question that he's asked most at this time of the year. Ken, where's that seed barley got to that I ordered this morning?
Oh, it'll be with you, John. Never for you. Never for you. We've got it in stock and the boys will bring it out to you.
Is it true that that's probably the question that you're facing every day?
It's one of the questions I'm facing a lot of days, yes. It certainly is.
Why is it that we don't seem to plan so far ahead? Maybe some do, but some of us are terrible for leaving it till the last minute,
well,
aren't we?
You know, it's not just like getting a packet of cigarettes off the shelf, you know, that you can just walk in and buy just like that. There's a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of effort goes into processing and everything else. And of course, before that, it has to go through the seed tests and so forth to see that it's suitable for seed and whatever.
Take us back then to harvest time, perhaps, when this process begins, because you have to select seed barley then, and seed oats and seed wheat and all the rest, the forage peas, etc. How do you go about selecting what will be good for seed?
Well, our company has always endeavoured to give local farmers a share of the cake as far as possible. So I have some very good seed growers on the island, and I go out and see these fields growing and so forth. And then sometimes the farmer doesn't even know I've been until I say to him, yes, I've been and had a walk through that and had a look through it. It'll do fine, subject to how well you combine it. And then we'll send a test away to the seed testing station for germination and purity and so on. And I was very pleased actually about 3 years ago when the particular seed testing station that we use informed me that we had the best record of germination and purity tests of all their customers.
That's
and
remarkable.
I thought that was good for the Isle of Man.
Ken, you used to tell me about a man who held the record, I think, for germination and purity.
Yes.
He was a remarkable person because he didn't make a lot of noise, did he?
Yeah, the late Basil Johnson, when he was farming in Coolroy, combined a crop of winter oats, and there wasn't much winter or autumn sown stuff getting done then. It was an Aberystwyth strain of winter oats. I just forget, I think it was called S147. But anyway, that particular sample, and Basil didn't have the best machinery or anything to harvest it with, that is the only sample that we've ever had that was 100% germination and 100% purity. And that still stands to this day.
It's quite an achievement, wasn't it?
Oh, it was tremendous. I mean, a lot of our purities are between 99.7 and 99.9, and a lot of the germinations in the high 90s from about 94 upwards, they've got to be over 85. So we're usually well within the safety margins
But
most years, unless you get a very bad year, you know, and you might get one or two go down.
But Basil, as I remember that, and I remember Basil in Coolroy,
Yeah.
he'd an old MF combine, didn't he? Quite an ancient machine.
Oh yes, it was ancient, and I'm sure it must have been working with all sorts of spares on it, not necessarily Massey Ferguson spares, but he done an excellent job of that, and that stuck in my mind evermore. Like, you know, that was a real achievement.
Which sort of proves, Ken, that it's more the man than the machine.
Well, he did an excellent job of harvesting that particular year. There's no doubt about that. You know, it was good. But see, I heard you talking about the Lady Day for sowing there, John. Mr. Joe Corrin down Balaglawny used to be the late Joe Corrin. He used to say, March the 16th and then you can sow.
Right.
But a lot of people in the north have told me that St. Patrick's Day, they go by St. Patrick's Day. Once there's been St. Patrick's Day, which is usually around with the 17th, so Mr. Corrin wasn't far out, then they reckon it's right for sowing, providing the weather's right. And of course, a speck of March dust, they used to say, was worth a king's ransom.
Aye, I remember.
And this is a lovely March for getting on and sowing,
It is too. And when we talk about sowing times, I remember, I think my father used to always say, neither be first nor last sowing.
Well, if you're first, the birds visit you, don't they? And the rooks and the crows and all, they have a good pick at it. And but if you're somewhere in the middle, you're usually relatively safe, aren't you?
You try to be.
Yeah.
Ken, so you select your crop with field inspection at harvest time.
Before harvest, as it's
Before
growing.
harvest, yeah.
As it's growing.
And you take it.
Then see what the sample's like.
You take it then in, and what do you do? How do you store it?
We store it usually nowadays in tote bags. There's usually about 16 or 1700 in a tote bag. And we send the seed sample away, and that gets done for its germination and purity. And the particular seed station that I deal with are very, very good, because they also, if there's anything to do with the virility of it, they will ring me up and say, Ken, don't use this one.
Right.
They don't have to say any more than that. I know that there's something wrong with the virility.
Yes.
They've been excellent over the years, and we've found them very good indeed. You know, so we have our varieties, choose our varieties, and try. We've always tried to choose varieties which suit the island. In other words, they've got to stand a bit of wind, and they don't want to be too late of ripening altogether. We like, and of course the straw is as important now as an extra ton of barley to the acre, so that's very important too. And on this particular year, there's one company bought up the rights of Atom barley, which has been going for about 20 odd years, and we keep bringing new stuff in every year. And they are not going to continue breeding that at all. So once the Manx Atom spun out, that variety will be gone.
And that was a good, reliable variety.
Yes, particularly for people who were getting contractors where they couldn't rely on when the contract would be at them, because it wouldn't shed its grain. It would hold its grain until whenever it's combined.
But we've seen this down through the years, Ken, haven't we? We've seen good varieties that were a byword almost in farming.
Yeah.
In barley, like Proctor, was a tremendous early, or in the early years, was a variety that you could absolutely rely on.
Proctor was a malting variety as well, and so fellas used to get nearly 1% extra protein out of that, which was very good in feeding stocks and everything to help as well, you see. But there's another one now called, which has been a good bystander, is called Dandy, and a firm has brought up the rights of that, and I'm very, very pleased with them, because they are rebreeding it all for the northwest area of Britain, because it's the best for straw and grain. Might be slightly higher yield of smaller grain and so on, but they realise that the straw is very important as well as the big bold grain. And the firm that's done that is Dalgetty's. The only difficulty has been I've had to bring it all the way up from Buckinghamshire, but we've done that, and we've got quite a number of tons of that, and I'm delighted because I've been trying to get new Dandy for years.
And oats as well, varieties have changed, haven't they? Gone are the old varieties of Victory and Forward and Onward. Gosh, they were in year after year. They were the varieties that I grew up with.
Well,
and you probably.
I was very interested in your last week's programme with Jimmy Faulkner when he said there's no grain getting grown from Crankle right through to Michael. Because when I first started on the road in 57, the varieties up through that area were called Abundance and Marvellous, the two types of oats that did up through that area. And they did from this side of Crankle right through to Kirkmichael. And of course they're gone. Then out the west side, out your west side of the island, Forward did excellent. And I managed to get new Forward a number of years ago, and Forward went on until about 1988. But Onward and Victory had gone before then, and they used to be grown in the north and the south, and the Victory would be grown on highland as well. And then there was the little potato oats, which was a small oat, which the likes of old Mr. Callow up the How, just outside Douglas, used to grow. Very small oat, but very mealy, and did the job well up on high, sort of very exposed ground. So those things have gone, but they were good varieties, because it used to take over 10 years to develop a variety, but now with modern scientific methods and technology and all the rest, they can churn out these some of these hybrid varieties in about 4 years, and some stand the test of time and some don't. And as we all know, yeah.
But it has to go on, Ken, hasn't it? There's research and development all the time.
Oh heavens, yes.
And we have to keep moving with new varieties. Do you think the new varieties have changed the seasons that are they a little bit earlier?
Oh, I think some new varieties have been more frost resistant. You could sow them a bit earlier than the old-fashioned varieties, yes. And when you're talking about oats, there's a new one came out last year called Blanco. And this Blanco reminds you of the old-fashioned oats. It's a very good one. But because it's good, I couldn't get as much as I would have liked of it this year.
It's not been an easy year, Ken, has it?
It hasn't been an easy year. Last year, the Bruet and everything came excellent. Then there was a lot of cold weather, and the Bruet stood still for a while. And this reduced the yields. And I think besides that, a number of people didn't manage to get the lime. I'm talking particularly about barley now, because you need the lime for barley. And, it had a detrimental effect throughout quite a proportion of the island, which is why we haven't had quite as much Manx seed as we normally do, and I've had to import more on this particular year.
Well, I know I took some of our own seed oats down to Union Mills, to Raymond Connon, to have it graded.
Yeah.
And I knew before I brought it that the bushel weight was abysmal.
Yeah.
And talking to Raymond, he seemed to think that was fairly general last year.
I think he's probably right. You see, the new variety Firth that came out 2 or 3 years ago there, I had to wait 2 years to get it, and since I've got it, it's done quite well, but I haven't gone overboard on it, because I think, for one thing, it's a bit late of ripening. And there's some of the other varieties that's a good 10 days earlier, which makes a difference on the island here.
I think the thing that reminded me about the bushel weight, Ken, was when you were talking about the small oat and how mealy it was, because that's the acid test, isn't it?
Oh yes.
It's the meal, the kernel in the oat.
Yeah, the amount of feed you can get out of it.
The amount of feed,
the
the
cattle,
feed value
whatever.
that you can get, and good bushel weight where you a bushel is just a volume measure, isn't it?
Yes, a bushel of oats was 42 pounds, a bushel of barley was 56 pounds, a bushel of wheat was 64 pounds.
Yeah.
And Manx oats used to weigh very well in bushel weight, which is why they used to be able to ship it to Quakers, you see, like the Scottish oats.
Yes.
And
it came back as porridge oats to the Isle of Man, didn't it?
I'm sure a lot of it did, yes.
And some of us still enjoy that,
Yeah, oh yes.
But Ken, when it comes to this time of the year, we were saying earlier that timing is critical. There must be an enormous amount of pressure on you and your drivers and the people who operate your plant to get barley out, because we all want it at once, don't we?
Yes, it's one of these things. Harley Cokel, when he was alive, was great, and Harley used to say about combining, once the first combine is out, look out, there'll be others out within days. And it's the same with the corn drills. Once the first corn drill starts going, look out, the pressure's going to be on. But now, with some of the tools they've got, where they can do this one operation of disking, sowing, harrowing, all with the one tool, all at the one time, it's a tremendous saving. Fellas used to be disking for days and trying to get a good seed bed ready,
yes.
particularly in old lay fields and things. And it's a fantastic help. So those chappies can get ahead of us quicker, if you like, now than they used to be able to. We had a bit more chance to cope. But now things can be wanted very quickly, and everything has to move.
We seem to have digressed from the process of selecting and dressing and grading the grain, Ken. But that will have been going on. Does that go on fairly shortly after harvest, or?
We used to start in December, and now we start early January. the fellas used to be up at the nunnery buildings doing it, like, you know, and because it was 100 and all the rest in those days.
I know.
And now out at Union Mills, it's in tote bags, and then it's put into 50-kilo bags after it's been through the grader and dresser. We put a new Blair grader in, a Scottish Blair's of Blairgowrie, new Scottish one, in about 7 years ago. And it goes through the grader and dresser there. And it's bagged off in 50-kilo weights, you see.
One of the things that you often say to us as farmers when we come into Union Mills to have stuff graded is that you can't accommodate us right away because you're on a different run. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate that the machinery has to be cleaned out.
Well, this is it. You have to clean out between every variety, and it takes a number of hours because it has to be done very, very thoroughly. And so what Raymond and Raymond Conn and Peter Cook will try to do, they try to do a run at a time. If they're on Hart barley, for example, try and keep on that variety, or if they're on Dandy barley or whatever it may be. And the same if they're on a particular variety of oats, they'll do that variety of oats until they finish it. And then whilst they're on the oats, they will do all the varieties of oats one after the other, cleaning out in between, of course. But even so, you've got that cleaning down period between each variety, like.
Just tell some of us who have never. Obviously, we've seen the cleaner and the grader from the platform where we either empty or where we load. But how difficult is it then to clean it out? Do you have to get inside?
It's a tremendous job. They have to use industrial hoover and that sort of thing, you know.
Right.
And brushes and so forth and so on. And they've got what they call the duck house, where all the chaff and stuff gets blown into and everything, and they have to clean all that out, of course, and so on.
So it's quite an operation.
Yeah, well, because it's altered over the years, you see. When the thrashing mills were there, John, the seconds and thirds and rubbish were all taken out. So the cleaners didn't have such a big job to do, if you like. But now the modern combine puts the lot in, doesn't it? The seconds, the thirds, the small stuff, the weed seeds, the whole lot's there. So there's a lot for the grader to do, the grading machine to do. And it's a hard work machine, and it does a tremendous amount of work.
You also take the opportunity when you're putting it over the grader and the dresser to treat it.
Yes,
seed is often treated now.
Yes, it's usually treated. Well, the one we use in this particular time is one called Berry Gold, which is a safeguard against most of the seed-borne diseases.
This means
we're fortunate in the Isle of Man. We're not so bad for diseases in the Isle of Man as in lots of parts, even off the British Isles and so on.
Ken, is this because we've stuck to a rotational method of growing grain?
The Manx rotational method of farming was very, very good. There's no doubt about that, and I think this has had an effect, yes, John. But this particular dressing that we use now, Berry Gold, has proved very good. We've been using Berry Gold now for some 5 or 6 years or more, and we found it very good. But in the old days, they used to use agricin up at the buildings in the nunnery, and it was powder, and it'd be blown all over the place. And when you came out, even if you went in for 10 minutes, you'd be pink, you know. And you'd be tasting this stuff and be in your eyes, and you know, I don't know how today's modern health and safety people would have coped with that. But those fellas went on until their 80s and 90s.
It was the same out here when you were drilling it, Ken. The drill, your boiler suit, the tractor was covered in this red dust.
Yes.
But was deemed necessary to keep the crop healthy and protected against all the things that might assail it as it tried to start to grow.
Yes.
But Ken, coming back to the sort of the logistics of your job now, I'm sure you'll understand, because you began your work on the farm on the other end of it.
Yes, until I was about 26, 27.
And that must help you now in understanding the pressure that
heavens,
comes
yes.
into farming.
It does, without a doubt. I was very fortunate, you see, being asked to join a quality firm of quality people. Now, they were top quality people because not only had they survived through the recession of the 30s, but they'd thrived through the recession of the 30s. And these people were excellent. And they'd done it by concentrating on quality. Everything they were handling was quality. And when I first started, they used to put sacks of oats in the front of the window at North Quay shop before the springtime, and farmers would come in and putting their hand down and looking at the different varieties to see which they would have and so forth. And it was superb oats. There was no doubt about it. You know, and over the years we've tried to keep the quality as good as we can, taking in mind the variation that's been in varieties, as you say, some come and some go. Like we had a good barley a few years ago called Sultan, and it went out just in the 1 year. It got loose smut in it, left, right and centre, not only in the Isle of Man, but through the mainland as well. And so the likes of that variety went out in 1 year, and if you're relying on a lot for that for seed, that hits you at that particular harvest time and for the next seed time, of course, you see, when this sort of thing happens. And can happen once in a while.
So how do you plan it then, Ken? Because is there a regular trade and is there a steady uptake of seed in the island, or do you get peaks and troughs?
Oh, you do get fluctuations and so forth, but as I say, I've got some very good seed growers on the island who've grown for Ken Callister for years, and they take jolly good care of the crops, and this helps us tremendously too. You know,
they the same people
and
very largely?
A lot of them are the same people.
Yeah.
But not always. I mean, sometimes the conditions or they just couldn't get their particular fields harvested in good condition or whatever. So it's not always as easy as that. It's a bit more complex than that many a time. And but by and large, we've got a good idea how much we're catering for, and we try and do the majority with Manx grain, because they get a seed bonus, those whose stuff does pass for seed and is used for seed. And then we import pedigree and twice grown to make up new stuff for the following year, and also to make up any deficiencies in numbers that we are of a particular sort or whatever. But it's quite complex. The whole job is not as simple as it looks on the surface.
Well, one thing we haven't mentioned, Ken, we've mentioned barley and oats particularly, and we seem to have talked mostly about them. Do you handle wheat at all? Because that is now quite a very useful crop in the island.
Well, Hereward wheat has been excellent this last few years. I think Laxey would bear out that that's been doing as well for them as any of the others, like, you know. And you do get variations, of course, with breeds going and breeds coming in with different wheats as well.
But wheat growing, particularly for milling, has become a very specialised project, hasn't it?
Oh yes, at first when they started growing more Manx wheat for Laxey, because previously they thought the Manx wheat wasn't of sufficient quality, one or two people said to me, oh, but they can't grow good quality wheat. I said, just you give them a year or two at it and see how well they do, because they're quick to learn and they're quick to adapt, and they've done an excellent job of it. And I think Laxey would agree with that, that a lot of the Manx wheat nowadays is excellent.
Well, I've said time and time again, Ken, we don't grow milling wheat. We do grow some feed wheat here, but we don't grow milling wheat. But I do salute those who have almost perfected the art, I think it is, of growing this difficult crop to achieve the very high standards that it demands. And one of the most gratifying things in Manx agriculture, and I've said this before and I'm not afraid to repeat it, one of the most gratifying things is that in the Isle of Man today we can grow enough wheat to provide enough flour for our baking industry entirely.
Yes.
And that is
very
credit.
good.
It's a credit to the men who have done it.
I actually feel proud to have belonged to such a vitally important industry as agriculture. Through its golden years, as Jimmy Faulkner said last week, because I think agriculture has gone through its golden years in our lifetime, and I think it's still very vital. You've always got to feed the people, you've always got to house the people, you've always got to clothe the people, and so on. And in times of war or times of famine, it's absolutely, utterly vital. And I've been pleased just to be a small part of such an important industry.
Well, Ken, you still go around the farms, you still talk to farmers. You're here standing in the middle of my field here today on a lovely, lovely lunchtime here at Bollalise.
When a lot of fellas be sitting down having their dinner.
But Ken, how do you see it then, as a man looking in on agriculture, as it were, looking in on sort of crop growing and hearing all the debate that goes on, the Promar report, trying to assess where farming is going? How do you see it?
It's difficult to assess in a few words, but I think agriculture is absolutely vital. I know that Manx people involved in agriculture have been saying for years that there's nothing wrong with the environment, and we're glad that that's come out in the report, that is the case, because it's something that those of us that have been in the job and going around for years and years already more or less knew, as you say. And I think there are lots of changes taking place. I mean, a few years ago there was no peas getting grown, no maize getting grown, no beans getting grown. Although I can remember beans getting grown after the war, and vetches and stuff. And different crops are taking their place in different ways. And there is change going on continuously. Whether it'll continue to be on a world basis or not, like we keep getting told that agriculture is on a world footing now, but different nationalities eat different foods, have different cultures, have different ways of life. And the Manx way of doing agriculture has been very, very good. I sometimes say that they say about the Isle of Man looking so beautiful, it's because they are sitting on top of about 200 years of good husbandry. I mean, the Royal Manx Agricultural Society, for example, will be 104 years next year. 150 years, sorry, next year, 150 years. It won't be there in 2004. It won't be their 150th show, but it shows the longevity of thought that people in agriculture put into the countryside and put into their farming.
Ken, we're standing here in the middle of a field, and we look round us here as I suppose we're used to this. This is where we live and work. But when you do stop and pause and just take time to think and absorb it, it is a massive industry, isn't it? It's a big operation still, no matter where you are.
Oh yes, no matter where it is, agriculture is a big operation, and it's a basic necessity of life, and as such has to be preserved.
Yeah.
And although it'll be slightly different than what we've known, as it's kept getting different as we've grown older, that will still probably continue to a certain extent. But as I've said to you many times before, seed time and harvest shall not fail.
No.
It'll still go on.
And it does, Ken, which is a perfect cue for us to get back. The tractor is standing idle here at the moment, and we must get back to that and get going in this fine weather. But Ken, it's been good to talk to you, just to set the scene for what's happening right across the Manx countryside anyway, and now no doubt elsewhere in this lovely spell of spring weather.
Yeah.
Ken, you'll probably want to get back to your lorries and to your sacks and to the orders.
And it's good for me to be able to come and tell you that you'll get your seed barley tomorrow, John.
Ken Callister, thank you very, very much for coming for this brief spell in the middle of last Thursday it was. Still lovely, lovely weather. We look forward to this continuing. Just over the hedge, I can just look over the hedge now and see the sheep that are almost ready to lamb. We start probably next Monday. I think there's just one or two odd ones starting there now, but we keep an eye on those at the same time. All in all, things are looking pretty good in this fine weather, and we hope it continues. But for now, this is John Kennaugh signing off until next week's programme.